I've been fighting my whole life.
They want you to pray in the locker room.
Do you not see how absurd this is?
Nobody cared for 7 years. Now they do.
I believe they violated your rights.
You're appealing to the Supreme Court.
I made a promise to God, and I can't let him down.
I'm proud of you, no matter what happens.
Hey guys, well, that's Average Joe. And today on the show, we are exclusively talking with Coach Joe Kennedy. He inspired a book and a film called Average Joe. And you just saw the quick little trailer there, but it's all about his life story and the impact he made. He took his fight, his religious fight, all the way to the Supreme Court. So we're going to talk to him today. And I am pumped to talk to him about that. I want you guys to find out a little bit more about who Coach Joe Kennedy is. And today we're going to talk with him. Now, what's interesting is that this is Struck Live, our 17th episode. And as you know, we are a streaming series. We're actually, we've got a proof of concept at strucktheseries.com. So you can see it there. You can see everything about Struck the Series there. But I play Noah in the story. And the story is this incredible true life story. It's much like Average Joe because Coach Joe Kennedy, he had his own true story in his fight for freedom, religious freedom, and he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. We've got a story also, and that story is all about Dr. John Morris. And John Morris took his story. He was inspired by God to go to Mount Ararat and search for the lost Ark of Noah. And so we're going to have that story. That story is going to happen along with the story of Noah. And we're going to do two parallel stories. So it's kind of a interesting take on the story itself. There's the true story back in the 70s when John was inspired to take on Mount Ararat. And he was kind of like this modern day Indiana Jones, right? I mean, he was dodging avalanches. He was struck by lightning. Wild dogs attacked him. I mean, just crazy, crazy stuff. But he stood his ground and he searched for the ark. And he did also research that proved that there was a flood that reached around the globe. And so we're going to tell his story. And today we're going to talk to Coach Joe Kennedy, and we're going to tell his story. But you can see actually on the screen right now, you can see some of the new art that we're playing with. So this is the first time we've ever introduced the art that you're seeing on the screen. But yeah, we've got the dual timelines there shown. And these men were separated by centuries, but they both were struck by God. So there's just this incredible story we want to tell. And you guys can get involved and you can follow us. You can go to strucktheseries.com. In fact, let me just put that on here so you guys can see that. Hold on. I've got it here somewhere. Well, maybe not. But I've got, no, I don't have the banner here for some reason. It's not there, but it's strucktheseries.com. And you can go there and you can find out all about our series. But you can also, when you go onto the website, click on Lightning Club, because when you become a member of the Lightning Club, you are engaged in the process. You find out all the latest and greatest news. Like right now, I want to give you an update. We are pitching the series to networks and distributors. And so the pilot script has been written. The pitch deck is done, and we're actually actively pitching the project. So you can be a part of that. We have a communique. It's a once a month communique that we send out called the Lightning Bolt. And so that goes out. We just had one that went out. In fact, if you're a member of the Lightning Club, you know you got that in your email box. We're not going to bug you, but we send out a once a month communique, and you're finding out the information before we release it to the public. So you'll know the latest and greatest of who we're talking to, and when the series is a go, you'll find out first. So that's important. But yeah, that is amazing, and you can stay in touch through the lightning bolt. So make sure you go to strucktheseries.com and you find that out and get involved and tell your family and friends and support us, you guys. It's very, very important that we get the word out and people stay engaged into what we're doing. Just like House of David, you may have seen on Prime Video, or The Chosen that is in theaters right now, the season 5. It's gone all around the world. People are very interested in the Bible, and we're going to tell the story of Noah like you've never seen before, with all the special effects and the incredible action and epic adventure that is all a part of the Genesis story. And also John Morris, we're going to tell his story. So you want to be involved. And okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Joe Kennedy. So Joe is this amazing man that was just an average Joe, and he inspired a book. He inspired a film, which you can now see on Prime Video. That's where I watched it. But it is just a phenomenal film and phenomenal story, because like the title says, this is an average guy, and he did incredible things. He came out of really just a humble beginnings, and I'm going to talk to him about that. But his story, he took his freedom fight, his religious freedom fight, all the way to Supreme Court. His story is inspiring. His story is phenomenal. And I think that you guys are going to be very intrigued and really engaged in what he has to say. So if you would welcome Coach Joe Kennedy. Hey, Joe.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, great. Well, I'm excited to talk to you today. Find out more about your story. We're going to play an extended trailer so people can see a little bit more about what the story is all about. But hey, I just wanted to talk to you about your story, and really you had a kind of I want to say this right, so you correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a childhood that was rough, and you grew up in kind of a rough home, and you were adopted or in child services, I think. But tell us a little bit about your childhood and how your upbringing kind of prepared you later on in life for this fight that we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's the most amazing thing. And we were talking earlier about that, of God just took this brat of a kid. I was horrible. I was a really bad kid. And through the group homes and foster homes and stuff I went through and get kicked out of schools, I got expelled from every school. But it's so cool to see how God put all those pieces in, was preparing me for this battle. You know, here it is 40 years later. So it's just amazing what he does and what he could do with anyone's story.
It really is. In the film, you really see bits and pieces of your childhood, and you were, abandoned, honestly. And there was one man that I thought was interesting in your life, where you kind of went to a home, and he shows up later in the film after you get all the press and people know who you are. But did this man make an impact in your life after your parents had abandoned you and you had a rough upbringing?
Yeah, there was a culmination of that was probably 5 different people all rolled into one. But yeah, that guy's Terry. He's a great guy. He was at the boys' home, took care of us, and really, he was the one who got me thinking and planted all the seeds about God and early in my life. And he was somebody who actually cared about us, and it was amazing just to see him. Years later, he just showed up out of the blue boom, and he's right there on the football field with me. It was just totally shocked me. And yeah, so we all stay in contact with each other, and he definitely had probably the biggest impact on my life.
Wow, that's incredible. It shows, that just having a rough childhood and some of the tough things that you had to go and endure as a kid. And I know for myself, I mean, you're very impressionable, and there's a lot of anger I think that you kind of struggled with because of your, just you felt lost. But having someone in your life that really makes an impact at that young of an age is so important. So you also met your future wife when you were like 9 years old.
9 years old. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think in the film, it's interesting how you met her, and I love the creative aspects of the film and how the story is told. But it took years for you to reconnect and eventually marry her. So tell us about that story.
Yeah, and that's just God preparing different lives. She went through her own battles and went through a lot of trauma and was preparing her for this battle also. And we both had failed marriages. I was married twice before. I screwed up everything in my kids' life, and I did everything wrong as a husband. And I wanted to get this right. She was my first love, and I wanted her to be my last love.
Wow.
And it took 31 years to or I can't say that I had to mature, but because I still haven't done that. But God's been preparing us, and yeah, here we are, 20 years. Next month it will be 20 years we've been married now.
Oh my gosh. That's just incredible to me. So finally, your life took a great turn. You're married to your soulmate, and finally everything is working out, and you're really experiencing life on a different level than you had at the beginning of your life and what you struggled with during your childhood. And you also was a Marine, right? This is something that you went through before you married Denise.
Yeah, it was 20 years in the military. I was in the Marine Corps, got to serve in the best of times and during combat. So I got to see a lot of the world and had a different take on everything. I was really an atheist up to the point where we got married and we reconnected. She was a good church girl, grew up in the church, always loved God and had her faith, but I didn't have any. And so that's how I got introduced really in my relationship with God. Was when we got married, I was failing miserably as a husband to her, and I was desperate, and I just threw myself on the altar and said, God, you give me my wife, I'll give you my entire life. And he just took my life and tore it all apart, and it
You
was
know,
it was cool. It
it
was quite an experience.
I think it's truly interesting how God will do things in your life and you don't quite understand at the time that it happens. I mean, for me, as I was brought up in church, but I walked away from God when I was in high school and in college. And I got invited. Crazy stuff happened in my life. I went through a car wreck, almost died, all that stuff. But it really brought me closer to the Lord. And I started going to church because I was invited to, but it really was because I thought the girls were cute. you know? And the Lord used that to get me involved in church and get me more, engaged with Him. So I thought that was really interesting. And I ended up not marrying the girls that I was attracted to at the church, but at least it laid that foundation for me to rededicate my life and get back on the right road. So you made a commitment to God because of Denise, and tell us a little bit more about that. You just said something a little bit there a second ago, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I was really failing as a husband in our marriage. She had so much baggage, and all the trauma she went through, and uh, we were on our way to being separated, and I just started going to church with her. I was setting a bad example for our kids. They said, well, if he doesn't have to go to church, why do I? So I felt that pressure to set a good example for my kids. And Yeah, I sat there mean mugging the preacher for so long. I was sitting there just it wasn't until I was at the breaking point and God totally changed my life and everything got great. She just had a mini stroke, so she was dealing with a bunch of physical problems. I just got out of the Marine Corps, so I was doing the transition into normal civilian life. There were so many moving parts, and I thought God fixed everything when, as soon as I accepted Him, it seemed like everything was fixed, everything was healed, and everything was great. I started coaching. That was my covenant with God, is to give Him thanks after every game. So that's how it all really started. It just was, I was at probably one of my lowest points in life where, according to the world, I was very successful, but
Yeah.
I was missing that part. And yeah, look what He did.
It truly is incredible. I think that what I find is interesting about your story is that you made that commitment and your life started changing. And when we make a commitment to the Lord, sometimes we don't understand what's up ahead. You
Oh
know,
man.
when we make that commitment. But what I find is intriguing about your story is that you made that commitment and you stood your ground and you made that commitment to the Lord. You're like, God, if you save my marriage, if you make this work. And, you at the time, I think you were this was the love of your life and you didn't want to lose that. You had already gone through a bad marriage. She had already gone through a bad marriage. And if I remember right, there was some abuse in that marriage. So she was dealing with some post-traumatic syndrome there
Yeah.
from that marriage. And you had to deal with that as well, because she struggled through that. But what I find is truly miraculous through this is that you made that commitment, and it began your life kind of started to change after that. Well, let me. I've got this. Your life has inspired, as I said, inspired a book. And were you involved in writing the book? Did you write the book?
Yeah, the same writer who did the screenplay wrote the book with me. She was the ghost writer, and she was this awesome liberal girl, and we
Wow.
just hit it off so amazingly, and it was great for her to be able to tell the story, and that's how it all started. I just started unpacking my life, and it turned into all of this. It was, I mean, you can't even make this stuff up because it's so crazy.
It is crazy. Well, I want to play the extended trailer so everyone can see it, and then I'm going to come back to some comments and see. I want to talk to the people that are viewing and see if they've got any questions for you. So hold on one second. We're going to watch that trailer.
We ready?
I've been fighting my whole life.
Joseph Anthony Kennedy.
I was a hellion of a kid who nobody wanted.
1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps.
So, you told me that saying a prayer on the 50-yard line was the thing that was going to get me in the biggest fight of my life. You cannot tell me that God doesn't have a sense of humor.
Denise, could I see you in my office for a minute, please?
I want you to pray in the locker room.
Do you not see how absurd this is?
Kennedy, do your job and get them in the locker room.
I get it. It's not fair. Nobody cared for 7 years. Now they do.
I bet you can guess where this is going.
I made a promise to God. I can't let Him down.
I believe they violated your rights.
How do you think the superintendent looks at me when I didn't even know my husband had filed a complaint?
We can't quit now.
But God doesn't need you to defend him.
I'm not defending God. I'm defending the people of this country.
Yeah, the same people who are sending us hate mail.
And that is their right.
This case is going to take years to litigate, and there's no guarantee a judge is going to rule in your favor. Are you up for that kind of fight?
You're appealing to the Supreme Court?
I can't stop. Not now.
It's been 3 years of our lives turned completely upside down. I have been the collateral damage to this whole thing.
Will you finish this with me? Because I can't do it without you.
What is
is it going to take before your husband gives up this ridiculous crusade of his?
I really don't appreciate your tone. And don't you ever speak to me about my husband that way again.
I don't remember any fireworks.
That's exactly how I remember it.
No,
You can
no.
decide later which way to film it.
I'm proud of you, no matter what happens.
One thing everyone needs to know is that it's all her fault.
What?
You're the one who taught me that there are still things worth fighting for.
Hoorah!
That is such a powerful film. Coach Joe, I was just really taken back by how good it was done. Eric Close and Amy Acker just did such a tremendous job in those roles. And I want to talk to people. So several folks have commented. So Lauren Nicole, she's saying, would love to have you on God Links TV to tell us more about it. Too awesome. Bless you guys. Cindy Navarro has said she's been so excited about seeing the interview today, and she rewatched Average Joe last night. So
Awesome.
just to prepare for it. So that's good. Yeah, we've got several people on, so it's great. And we'll see what people say. There may be some questions. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them, and hopefully we can get them to Joe while we have him on the show today. But yeah, so tell me, we just saw the trailer. You guys need to watch the film. Like I said, I saw it on Prime Video. Where can people find the book? Is it on Amazon?
Yeah, you can find the book Amazon, anywhere books are sold, Barnes and Noble, any place. So you could get the book, and even Walmart sells the movie now. So you could stream it off of Amazon Prime, I think it is, and Pureflix. So it's available, so everybody can hear the story and hopefully inspire others.
Yeah, that's so true. It's very inspirational. I think when regular folks see a movie like this, or read the book, it's almost like, what can I do? What can I do to make a difference in my life? Here's this guy who really struggled in life and made a commitment to God and changed the course of history. So I have to ask, why was this fight so important for you?
That's a really good question, because I really didn't understand it for years. I didn't understand why it was so important, because I was just standing up for my principles. I'm like, really, this was a 15-second prayer. So I still couldn't wrap my brain around why when it had to go to the Supreme Court, why there was a movie. But we wanted to tell the story that God could use the least likely people and the most average people. And that's where we really wanted to go, is just to inspire people that one person does make a difference. It isn't all these politicians and everybody else that you see in Hollywood. It's people like you and me telling a story, and hopefully we'll inspire others, especially through film.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think that what happens when you realize that you made such a huge difference, and I want to really talk a little bit more about what this Supreme Court decision changed in a second, but you made such a huge impact, and you started in your own community. And that's what I think people think, well, how can I make a big change? I'm just here in Podunk, USA. How can I make a big change in my, but it starts in the local community. That's where it starts, right?
Oh, it absolutely does. It starts in your own home. And when I got my relationship with the Lord, that's where everything really started. You go through your hard knocks through life, but really it comes to that moment where God changes everything, and it starts in my life, then it goes into my family, and then it goes out into our communities, in our schools, in our churches, and you never know where you're going to end up. you have no idea. But being able to stand for what you believe in, I really want to inspire people to do that, because you've seen how much we've given up over the years of our freedoms, and it's the little tiny things that make the difference. And I wanted to teach my guys that you always do what's right. And here was a prime example of standing up for what is right, even if it costs you everything.
Well, one of the stories that really impacted me was the how how prayer was taken out of the school. And back, and I think in the early '60s, when one woman decided to make it her fight to take prayer out of school, and so it happened, but no one stood up. No one said, "No, this isn't right." And so it happened. It was it slowly was taken out of the school system, and we've been fighting ever since, to get religious freedom back. And I think that we've got to be vocal. We have the right to be vocal in our country. We have such amazing rights as people, and we should elect officials that also believe in the same things that we believe in.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and all that is so important, and we can make a difference. You made a difference. So tell me a little bit about how long it took to go through the courts before that you had the case before the Supreme Court, because that's just really a phenomenal story.
Yeah, we were in our 8th football season coaching when all of this started. So I mean, this was going on for years, 8 years. I prayed on the field twice a week, and then halfway through the season, and they came to me with the lawyers and said, you can't do this. And I stopped praying with the kids. So I didn't want this fight, man. I didn't want to fight against the school district. These people are my friends. We go to church together. Our kids grow up together, and nobody wanted this fight. So it ended up, we lost 7 times in a row, and going to the Supreme Court twice just for a 15-second prayer. But it was probably the most important battle for religious rights since in the past 50 years of my lifetime, when they, like you said, they took God out of our schools, and now we're having to fight. It's our first freedom. You read the Bill of Rights, it's pretty clear you have the freedom of religion, and people cannot take that away from you. And they absolutely did. And people didn't understand that. And it's so weird. You go to like the West Coast, and people are like, well, of course you can't pray in public school. You come down to the South and everybody prays at school. It's
Yeah.
our country's all messed up. But it took 8 years and 7 losses to end up getting our rights back.
So how, I know a lot of times the Supreme Court is so selective on, because I guess they're bombarded with so many cases. Tell me a little bit about how that happened with the Supreme Court, because they're so selective on what cases they really actually hear.
Yeah, and they don't like to go against. So they do a lot. Only cases they really do are the ones that have to do constitutionally, and so it's so selective. I don't know, 7,000-8,000 every year get submitted, and they only take 60. I think they took 63 that year, and so it was like winning the lottery twice.
Not 63,000, 63, right?
Yeah, 63. That was it.
Nice.
And we were one of them. So it was pretty amazing. And I like to blame the public for this and all Americans, because they were so outraged over how insane this was. And everybody was praying and supporting us in this. And God, it's amazing what he did with a 15-second prayer. I mean, he changed the landscape of our religious freedom in America over a 15-second prayer.
Right. Well, and you stood your ground. In the film, it shows you going out, and I know your wife, am I right? She worked for the same school, so she had a lot of pressure, because once you decided to do what you're going to do, you didn't want to give that up, and you made your commitment to God, and you said, I'm going to pray. And so you did it. And you would walk out on that field, even though they were telling you not to do it. Um, how, how did your wife survive that? Because I know that had to be very difficult for her.
We almost got divorced over this. But God intervened right at the right time. That's the power of film. So I'm sure you probably are familiar with Facing the Giants,
Yeah.
the football movie. That's where this all started from. When I got the idea from that movie, it inspired me to start coaching. It was like my calling. I heard it through the TV on this old movie of faith. And so I don't know how she survived it. I really don't. We almost got divorced over it, and then God showed up right at the last minute as I was walking out the door, like the movie portrays. I was on my way out the door, and so God really had to work in our lives on both sides, and we felt like we were on completely different paths. So I love it when she tells her story. I think because I was always a fighter. You saw that in the movie and in the book. I've been a scrapper my whole life. She isn't anything about that. She hates conflict, and here I am dragging her through all of this for years. It wasn't something simple. This was years of our life.
It's so impactful when God intervenes like that, where he changes the whole narrative, the whole story. And at that moment, it brings you guys together. And it's, it's so, what I loved about your story is that there's so many things out there today, film, entertainment, that really, push the negative narrative about marriage. And here you guys, it showed a reality of marriage, that everyone struggles with marriage. You've got two independent individuals coming together, where society says it's going to be difficult. You might as well just give it up. What I felt like your story really portrayed was that you guys come together. And that's at a very pivotal point in the film, where you come together and you work together and start believing together. And at that point, I thought it was interesting because her faith brought you to the Lord. Her faith allowed you to start attending church, and then you were impacted by that. But then your faith impacted her. Is that
Yeah,
the way
and
it
and
happened?
not in a good way. This is majorly negative, and I couldn't explain it. I mean, really, how do you explain what God has called you to do? And
Yeah.
I could tell her 1,000 times, God has called me to fight this fight, and she just could not understand it. It was tough. It was
Yeah.
crazy, and we want to inspire people that we can make if we can make it through this.
Right.
Think about all the fights that people get divorced over dumb things, and it's so easy to quit. No, you got to stay in there, and God will. If you take the threads and you wrap it around God and be in the center, man, you're not going to break that.
Yeah. But at that point, you guys really, she started standing with you. Is that the way it happened? That she,
Yeah. It was that turning point. I got a video from the guys who did Facing the Giants, the Kendrick brothers, as I was walking out the door, and it just floored me. I fell down the stairs, and she came out and we watched that, and it was like the scales were immediately removed from her eyes, and she understood that God was part of this. This was all God's doing. And then everything just seemed to click because we were in step with each other and we were on the same path. And it took years. I don't know, probably 3 years into the legal battle before she even got on board with uh, being on my side.
well, she was, embattled really with the school. She wanted to keep her job, her position. And while you were let go and you were in the middle of this fight, and I think she had to deal with the talking, the people being really just not very kind to her
Yeah.
because
If
of your fight.
Yeah, it was so tough for her. I mean, she had to deal with this every day. She was the HR director, so everything comes through her office, and she was on the school boards and everything. And I can't imagine her sitting through meetings where they were discussing this and going, "Well, maybe you should leave." And she was out on an island all by herself for so long, and I didn't even realize that. I was so entrenched in this fight that I forgot about her, and it took God to bring us back together.
Well, and that's the key to a good marriage is that communication. And when you come together, there's going to be times where you disagree, of course, you're individual people, but it was so inspirational to see you guys come together. I think it's going to inspire a lot of couples too, not just the fact that you stood your ground and you stood your faith, but that also that you guys came together and fought together. It's powerful because, you know, there's that scripture, one can put 1,000 to flight, but two can do so much more. I think it's 10,000 to flight. So it's just miraculous, honestly, when two people come together and they are in unity. And that's what God had to do in order to get this through to the finish line. Well, tell me, how did your relationship with God change through all of this? I mean, this was it 8 years it
Eight
took?
years.
How
Yeah, it
did
took
your
9 football seasons to get back onto the field. And so my relationship with God, I was brand new baby Christian when I started coaching. And so I went through a maturity of learning about God and this relationship with God. And right when you think everything is great and life is perfect,
Mhm.
boom, you have something like this that knock you all the way down to man, right to your knees again. And that's the only thing I had at most of the time. It was, I had to just be in prayer. I had to just rely on my faith because I had nothing else. I couldn't turn to my wife. I couldn't turn to my friends. I had to set a good image for my football team. You know, you got to play that, you know, tough Marine guy all the time. And really, it was tough. I didn't want this fight. I didn't want even, if it, all honesty, I wanted to quit probably every single day and say this is not worth it. But it was just on my knees in faith that got me through it. So yeah, you can't tell me there's no God because I know.
Well, when you go through something like that, you definitely know there's a God. You feel him, you know, the presence of God beside you, especially when, like you said, when you felt like your wife wasn't with you, there was no one you could turn to. And that's when God comes in and I think that strength, that power, because of the commitment that you made to him, you know, that also just really kind of just cemented you there and allowed you to stand your ground no matter what. Well, so tell me a little bit about what actually happened, like with the case when you guys you said that the first case, the Supreme Court, that failed, right? And you had to go
Right.
back again. So you went
Yeah.
back, and was it a loophole, or how were you able to go back to the Supreme Court again?
See that it's like winning the lottery at twice. It is so amazing. So we filed an injunction just to get me back on the football field, and then the lower courts were ruling just crazy stuff. The political climate, um, the lower court said that any display of religion in the public square could be grounds for termination. So we had to fight. We had to appeal that, and that was probably the biggest pressure on me, not just the wife and losing my team and going through all of this. It was really, dude, I don't know how God works in his ways, but so the injunction failed, but they were concerned about the lower court. So we got a kind of a reprieve and
Hmm.
started the whole process. We had to go start from scratch and then go through the courts all over again. And there's no explanation for it except for God, because this is
Wow.
a 15-second prayer. I mean,
Yeah.
does that need to go to the Supreme Court seriously, especially in America? So
Yeah.
yeah, this was all God's doing.
but what it did, it changed everything. I was honestly, I was totally amazed at the end of the film and where it states some of the things that changed really all. Uh, and I want to get back to that in a second, but um, your case changed so much in our system, and I want to talk about that. But first, we've got a question from Cindy Navarro. She says, "How important was a sense of humor during this time that you had to go through the courts?"
Well, you can never, my wife can't take me seriously most of the time. And she thought I was just being a defiant punk kid that she grew up with. And I try to do everything with humor. I really do, because you need to have a sense of humor if you're dealing with God, because he's got a weird sense of humor. And yeah, and I hope that I came across in the movie. We wanted to show that it's not all gloom and doom, that you can make light of things, especially afterwards. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm still smiling. So
Well, that's good. That's good to know. I mean, you're right. God does have an interesting sense of humor for sure. So someone asked here, Struck actually, how was the support in your community? Was there people who were in agreement, or was there more like people that were opposed?
in agreement. Of course, we had the local chapter from the Satanist group show up. They had the black robes and mask and
Gosh.
um, horns and everything. They showed up just to make, headline news. And but I would say 99% of the people were in support of me the whole entire time. My wife took more beatings from people threatening her and the school, and shut down their entire system. They couldn't do email, phone calls, fax, because the nation was outraged by it, and they all reached out to the school and said, "Yeah, enough is enough." But we had to fight that fight.
How did the story go national? Like, was it just one
Uh,
report,
yeah,
or what happened?
that is, oh, the power of the cell phone is so amazing, and social media. So I did one post, just one post onto Facebook, said, "I think I just got fired for praying." And I got a call the next day from a person on the East Coast and saying, "Dude, you're on TV." And I thought they were picking it up our football game because it was an awesome football game. I thought we might be on Sports Center or something showing highlights, but nope, it was praying coach. So this went viral overnight, and God just took it and just went crazy with it. And
Wow.
yeah,
So I know the film tells the true story, but with film, a lot of people don't understand, when you take a story from even a novel or a book, you've got a 400-page book that you have to compress down into a 2-hour film. What was your impression of how the story was relayed in the film, and how did they portray your fight? Was it real? Was it true to life? I mean, everything that they show in the film, or what?
oh yeah, absolutely. It was really true to life. I'd say 90% of the film just followed exactly what happened. If anything, we had to tone it down a bunch because it was so dramatic, and you can't show all of life. And it's huge to get onto the big screen and share your entire life story to the public. I mean, there's no hidden things now, and that's scary, man. That is a scary thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, so someone says here, let's see, was the coffee shop scene with Thomas based on a true story? I love that part. And let me just kind of give some reference to that, because I love that scene too, because so many times today, people feel at liberty to be very hateful and mean spirited in comments online because they're not in front of your face. And so they will say the most horrible, mean spirited comments because they're on the computer and they
Yeah.
can get away with it. So what I like about that scene was you said, hey, let's just have some coffee and talk about this, because this guy was really not understanding, and he didn't understand kind of really the truth about it. He was probably listening to the media and what the media was saying. But tell me a little bit about that scene. Was that true? Did that really
Oh
happen?
yeah, that was probably the closest of all the scenes in the movie. I think that one they portrayed the best, because when I sat down with that guy, he was the guy who started the local atheist group there in Kitsap County where we're from. So he was the president and founder of this. And we got so much hate mail, and I had death threats all the time. And I was like, all right, tough guy, let's meet for lunch. If you want to kill me, let's meet for lunch. He was the only guy that took me up on it, and he ended up schooling me on the Bible. I mean, this is at mouth of an atheist, and he says you're not going to get any trouble from anybody in my group now, because he understood that this was a constitutional thing. It wasn't me cramming religion down somebody's throat, which a lot of people thought that's what it was about.
Yeah, and I think that from the film, he felt like you were pushing it on the kids and making them pray with you, and that's not what you were doing.
Yeah, and then I stopped. So when the school said stop praying with the kids, I never prayed with my players again. It was all by myself after that. It was never with the team. So there was a lot of miscommunication. You only see headlines on things, and they'll spin a narrative any way that they want. But I hope he watches this, and I'd love for that guy to get a hold of me and tell me what his thoughts are now after all said and done.
Yeah, that's impactful. So many times I think in our society today, and I think the internet has given people more liberty to be just hateful in what they say in their comments, and of course our kids go through things in school where they'll a schoolmate will post something very damaging, to the reputation, or they'll post images. And with AI and all the other things that you can do today, it's the internet has become this battleground, and people tend to get really spirited and hateful. But I thought, wow, to me, that was such a good scene, because it encourages us to say, hey, let's just talk about this. We can talk about it, even though we disagree. Let's talk about it. And that's what I like. We need to all take your advice there and, look at that film and say, hey, what can we do to start the conversation instead of being so, in our own corner and being so malicious in our comments. So what do you feel like was the total result of your win for religious freedom? What's different today because of your win in the Supreme Court?
Yeah, that's the most amazing thing. There was when they took prayer out of school, and back in 1970s or whatever it was, Lemon versus Kurtzman, and religious liberty had to go through this test of the Lemon test from this case. So it was like Roe versus Wade. That was abortion. This was religious liberty, and so this was it's crazy how this overturned, I think, 7 or 8,000 different cases over the past 50 years. We have more religious freedom now than we've had in our entire lifetime, which is weird in America. I mean, how can you even this was a blessing. So now you see the I think there's 16 states that have the 10 Commandments up in the public schools and in the courthouses and stuff. You could put up the manger scenes. You could have Christmas parties again. You could sing religious songs. You could even say a prayer at work. And this is not just in the school. We're talking in any public square. You could take your Bible and put it right on your desk and just have it there, just for a conversation piece. This has opened the door for so many people to live out their faith now.
Well, for a country that was really founded on God, that was founded by our founding fathers who had a belief in God, it's interesting how things get twisted over the years, and how the Constitution and our and really our whole way of life was built on Christian principles, like the Ten Commandments, and then to have all of a sudden everything stripped away because people would say, hey, we should not be forced to believe in these things anymore. And
Yeah,
I
and they
think,
use words like separation of church and state and
yeah,
have absolutely no idea what that even means. So
yeah,
we just lack our education system really bad with this, teaching the American public of what our freedoms are.
yeah, it's truly such a phenomenal thing that your fight really did switch us back and give us back a lot of religious freedoms. And that Lemon Kurtzman case was in 1971, I believe. But what did that do? What did it allowed people to not do public nativities or public shows of faith?
Yeah, they would all revert back to this. And so anytime there was any kind of case or anything that came up with religion in the public square, it would have to go through the Lemon test. And you couldn't pass this test. It was a failing test. It was 100% stacked against religious liberties of Americans. And so that was the big boulder that just stuck in the middle of the road, and nobody could pass it. So this overturned 8,000 different cases over the years. That's a lot of cases that people have lost just because of this stupid case that was back in the 70s, and overturning it was it's the biggest thing to happen for religious freedom in probably we'll see in our lifetime. So, and I think it's a great turning point for all Americans that we are finally turning our eyes back to God. It's a slow turn, but man, I could feel the shift.
Yeah, it truly is just an incredible story, Coach Joe, and how your 15-second prayer changed everything. But I want to encourage you guys to see the film, to get the book, to read more about the story and what actually happened. It is a very inspiring film, and outstanding. The really the acting, the story, and it will inspire you to do something, to stand with your faith in a world that may seem dark. We can stand for what we believe in and really not force it on people, but just make a difference, like Joe has made a difference in really thousands and thousands of folks, as well as in our legislation. So, Joe, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. I've just been blown away by your story, and I really appreciate you being involved and having the time today to talk to us a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch the whole entire series now with you. I want to see where this goes.
It's going to be great, and I cannot wait to get that on the airways as well. Hopefully, we want to go around the world and make a truth impact like you did on this country. But Joe, thank you so much for joining us again, and you guys make sure you follow him, make sure you get involved, and check out the film Average Joe. It truly is an incredible story, and I think you guys are going to be impacted by it. And I want to just show you guys really quickly here. Here is his. Let's see. There we go. That's the film. So make sure you see it. And it's done so well, you guys. I think you'll really enjoy it. My wife hadn't seen it, so I said, okay, you've got to see this film. It's an important film. It really is inspirational. So I want to tell you guys also, there is merchandise. If you go destructtheseries.com, and I found the banner so you can see it right there. But go to destructtheseries.com and check out our merchandise. Here's the cool thing. When you stand for faith, just like Joe did in his life, when you stand for your faith, we've got great merchandise that says struck by God. If you're struck by God, you can stand on the foundation of your faith and make a faith statement by wearing a t-shirt, a dog tag, having a cap or a mug. It makes a faith impact, but it also helps us get struck off the ground and get it produced so we can change and make a truth impact to the entire world with this incredible true life story. So you can also make donations. You can be involved. Like I said before, join the Lightning Club. Stay involved with this. Tell people about what we're doing. It really is a powerful story, and we want you guys to be involved in that. And again, go to strucktheseries.com. You can find out more information. There's also a proof of concept there. So it's a few minutes, and you can kind of see what we're all about, what the story is all about. Let's see who else we got on. There's Beyond the Farthest Star. That's a good film too, you guys. You've got to see that. Find it. It is an amazing film. And it actually, in the film, there is a public nativity, and it becomes this national story, much like Joe's prayer did. It became a national story and in the film, and you can kind of see the impact of this public nativity. So that's really great. They say these court cases are often divisive, and mostly because we only talk instead of listening to all sides. Great movie. Yes, Beyond the Farthest Star is a great movie, and so is Average Joe. Really great. Sharon says hi. So hey, Sharon. So yeah, oh yeah, okay. So Christian Filmmakers Network says terrific interview. Thanks, Coach Kennedy and Ben. Yes, gosh, this has been incredible. I just appreciate Joe and his story. So get involved with us. Let us know how you guys are doing, because if you need any materials, please, you can kind of email us. You can connect with us also at strucktheseries.com. And I want you to make sure that you stay engaged with Struck Live, because next month we're interviewing Tom DeRosa, and Tom is a Christian. He's also a creationist, and you're going to find out about his story and how he got involved with Dr. D. James Kennedy, and the whole story of how he was an atheist, and just like Joe, how God changed his life, and he became really this freedom fighter in another sense, because he fought for creation. And so you'll see his story next month. So make sure you turn back into us and tune back in next month. But listen, thank you guys for joining us today. Get the story out. Get our Struck the Series. You can join us on Facebook, all of our socials, YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. If you're watching on Facebook, thank you. But you can find all of our series, all our series of episodes for Struck Live on our YouTube channel. So make sure you check out those. But listen, thanks so much. Again, we appreciate you guys. I'm going to close it out. And again, you guys, thanks for joining today. We appreciate you.